The house on Willow Lane did not creak with menace, but with memory. It was a large, old Victorian, its bones settled into the gentle slope of the land, and its soul filled with the quiet of 82 years. Arthur Pembroke was its caretaker, its sole resident, a man whose own internal landscape mirrored the house's hushed and orderly rooms. His life had condensed, like a reducing sauce, to its most essential elements. The day began, as it always did, at 7:30 with the whistling of the kettle, a high, sharp sound that pierced the dawn's stillness. He would brew his Earl Grey, the bergamot scent a familiar ghost in the kitchen, and carry the china cup and saucer to the sitting room. Here, the dust motes danced in the slanted morning light, and here Arthur would perform his first ritual of the day, the opening of the ledger. It was not a ledger of finances, but of feelings. A soft brown leather notebook, its cover worn smooth by the passage of countless fingers. Inside, in his precise, slightly old-fashioned script, were not the grand headlines of his life, his wedding, the birth of his son, his retirement, but the footnotes, the forgotten moments, the glances, the scents, the fragments of joy and sorrow that are too often washed away by the tide of years. He believed these were the things that truly built a life, the mortar between the bricks of larger events. And so, each morning, he would read a few entries, not in order, but as the Spirit moved him, allowing the past to wash over him and fill the silent present. It was his defense, his sanctuary, his reason for moving through the beautiful, empty museum his home had become. His fingers, gnarled with arthritis, found an early entry. The paper was faintly yellowed, the ink a little faded. October 5th, 1961. He closed his eyes, and the sitting room dissolved. He was 24 again, his body lean and eager, not yet bowed by time. The scratchy wool of his best suit was a tactile reality against his skin. He was on the 8:15 train to London, the carriage a cacophony of jostling commuters, the air thick with the smell of coal smoke, damp wool, and faint perfume. He was staring, trying not to be obvious, at a woman sitting diagonally across from him. She was reading a book of poetry, her head bent in concentration. But it wasn't the book that held his gaze, it was the ribbon in her hair. A simple satin ribbon, but its color was extraordinary. The exact blue of a summer sky just after a rainstorm, a color that held both clarity and promise. A shaft of weak autumn sunlight struck it through the grimy window, making it gleam. Then she looked up from her book, not at him, but out at the speeding landscape, and she smiled. It was a small, private smile, a gift to the world outside. Arthur felt his breath catch. In that unguarded expression, he saw a universe of warmth, intelligence, and quiet joy. He didn't need to speak to her. He simply needed to know that a person who could wear such a ribbon and offer such a smile to the world existed. He spent the rest of the journey constructing a life for her in his imagination. He decided her name was Eleanor. That night, he bought the notebook and wrote his first entry, preserving the moment before it could be lost forever. The memory of the blue ribbon became an obsession. For 2 weeks, Arthur took the same train, hoping to see her again, but the carriage with the specific light that had illuminated her was gone. Despair began to set in. Then, on a rainy Tuesday, driven by a hunch he couldn't explain, he went to the city's central library. He wandered the aisles, his heart thudding a nervous rhythm against his ribs. And then, in the poetry section, he saw her. She was on a small stepladder, her back to him, re-shelving a book. His book, Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman. His mouth dried. This was fate. It had to be. He stood there, paralyzed, as she climbed down, brushed her hands on her skirt, and turned. Her eyes, a warm, intelligent brown, met his. There was a flicker of recognition, or perhaps just curiosity. This was his chance. He cleared his throat. "That's a brave book," he managed to say, his voice sounding strange to his own ears. She looked at the volume in her hand and then back at him, a small smile playing on her lips. "Brave? How so?" "It asks its readers to be brave," Arthur said, feeling a little more confident, "to look at the world and themselves without flinching." Her smile widened. "I suppose it does. My name is Eleanor." "And I'm Arthur." The name he had given her in his mind was miraculously her own. They talked for an hour, right there amongst the stacks. Her laughter was everything he had imagined it would be. He wrote of it later. "Today, I met the universe again, and it told me its name was Eleanor. We spoke amongst the poets, and I have never felt more alive." Their first official date was at a small, steamy, windowed café called The Gilded Page. Arthur was a bundle of nerves, rehearsing conversations in his head. Eleanor, in contrast, was effortlessly charming, asking him questions about his work as an apprentice architect and his dream of designing beautiful, functional homes. Then, in a moment of madness, he told her a joke. It was a truly, profoundly terrible pun involving a skeleton and a locked door. He finished, his face flushing, certain he had ruined everything. Eleanor stared at him for a second, her eyes wide. Then a snort escaped her. She clapped her hand over her mouth, but it was too late. A full-bodied, unreserved laughter burst forth, and in her mirth she jostled the table, sending her cup of tea tipping over, the warm liquid spreading across the wooden surface. She didn't seem to care. She was laughing, tears in her eyes, her whole being alight with joy. "Oh, Arthur," she gasped, "that was awful." He looked at her bright eyes and tea-stained napkin, and he felt a surge of pure, unadulterated love. He wasn't in love with a perfect, untouchable ideal anymore. He was in love with this real, vibrant, snorting, tea-spilling woman. He wrote in his notebook that evening, November 12th, 1961. "Eleanor laughed so hard at my terrible joke that she snorted tea out of her nose. We were in a cafe and she turned bright red, but her eyes were shining. I knew then, with a certainty that shook me, that I wanted to make her laugh like that for the rest of my life. I have never seen anything more beautiful." It became their tradition, Saturday walks, regardless of the weather. One Saturday in March, the skies opened up with a sudden, drenching fury. Arthur, ever practical, made to run for the nearest shelter, pulling his coat over his head. But Eleanor stopped him, her hand firm on his arm. "Wait," she said, a mischievous glint in her eye. The rain plastered her dark hair to her head in seconds. Instead of complaining, she looked down at the pavement, which was quickly becoming a tapestry of expanding puddles. Then, with a determined little grin, she stepped squarely into the largest one. A splash of water soaked the hem of her coat and his trousers. She did it again, and again, jumping from puddle to puddle, like a child, her laughter ringing out, competing with the drumming of the rain. Arthur watched, stunned, then enchanted. He let his coat fall, he took her hand, her skin cold and wet in his, and joined him. They jumped together, splashing through the gray London rain, their shoes waterlogged, their clothes soaked through. They were a spectacle, and they didn't care. In that moment, they were the only two people in the world, citizens of a kingdom of their own making, built on puddles and laughter. He wrote, March 3rd, 1962. We walked through the park in the rain. She insisted on jumping in every puddle. Her stockings were soaked, and her hand was cold in mine, but it was the warmest I have ever felt. She teaches me how to live. Months passed, a blur of shared moments, all carefully recorded. The way her head fit perfectly in the crook of his shoulder, the specific scent of her perfume, honeycomb and vanilla, that lingered on his clothes long after they parted. The quiet comfort of reading in the same room, not speaking for hours, yet being profoundly together. Arthur knew, with every fiber of his being, that his future was with her. He saved for a ring, but when the time came, the simple gold band seemed insufficient. He wanted to give her something more. On Christmas Eve, he took her to the hill overlooking the city. The air was crisp, and 1,000,000 stars pricked the velvet sky. Below them, the city